Hi, it's Mr. Adams here, a mathematics teacher with over 20 years of experience. In this video, I want to explain why giving money to home buyers doesn't actually work and makes things worse. There's this general consensus that we want to be able to help first home buyers, and ideas in the past have included first home buyer grants, small deposit loans, exemptions on stamp duty, and for them to be able to use their superannuation. Now, there has been all sorts of variations along these sort of general ideas. Initially, I was very supportive of this idea because the way I thought it'd work was you'd give $10,000 to a home buyer, and then what happens is they've got $10,000 more than they would normally have. That would give them a $10,000 advantage over the investor. Unfortunately, this is not how it works. Let's say the bank requires a 10% deposit and you already have $20,000, so you can loan up to $200,000. You're given $10,000 more, so now your deposit is $30,000. That means that you can get a loan for $300,000. So you've been able to use that $10,000 to actually get 10 times the amount that you were initially given. It's impossible to get a clean calculation from this because there's a lot of variation, but essentially the ability to be able to borrow more pushes house prices up by more than what was initially given. So some people early on may benefit, but later people do not benefit at all. Now, this is where investors step in because the value of their property also increases, which gives them a bigger financial benefit. This gives the investor both the capacity to invest more in property, but also the incentive to invest more in property. And this causes additional increases in house prices. And then this whole cycle just keeps on going. Put this in a flow chart. So a home buyer is given more money. The home buyer can borrow more than what they were given. This increases property prices. Investors can now borrow more. Investor is incentivized to borrow more. Investor buys more property, which creates this cycle where the property prices keep on increasing. Now, what I'm saying here is this part in red is that increasing property prices causes increasing property prices. This explains some really important concepts. For instance, why when incentives for home buyers are removed that the property prices continue to increase, and why property price increases causes further increases, and why making it easier for home buyers increases prices, but making it harder again doesn't actually necessarily work in the opposite direction. This whole thing does have a reverse cycle. So as house prices increase, there are less potential future increases. Investors look for non-property investments. That means that property prices, either the increases slow down or they start the reverse. Investors become less optimistic about property gains, so they either buy less property or they sell them, and then this whole cycle starts to repeat. Without trying to get too convoluted here, it's important to realize that there is also a flip side to the reverse cycle. So as house prices decrease, there are more potential future increases. So investors can start looking at property again, which pushes them up, and we get that cycle where they start to increase again. So are these flowcharts more psychology than mathematics? I would have to say yes. As much as I hate to admit it, mathematics has its limits, and investor psychology is really important here. If you believe that something will go up in value, well, you'll pay more for it today. The exact relationship between how much you give a home buyer and how much the price increases is unknown and is probably unknowable. When we look at the ways to help home buyers, well, first home buyer grants, they don't work. Small deposit loans don't work. Exemptions from stamp duty don't work. Using your superannuation, they all don't work. I'm really sorry, but this video is all bad news for home buyers. Direct help makes things worse. Removing home buyer grants and things like that doesn't necessarily help, and property price increases can cause further increases. But I do want to finish with some good news for home buyers. Investors will naturally remove themselves from the property market if they think the prices are overvalued. And we can also remove incentives for investors to be in the housing market in the first place. Just a final note, when we compare a $30,000 home buyer grant versus hundreds of thousands of deductions for an investor, there's no real comparison. So we can't make things easier for home buyers, but we can make it more difficult for people to invest in the property market. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and hit the like button. Please leave a review and a comment. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a mathematics teacher with a passion for teaching financial literacy. Please read the disclaimer.